when we did sell live, not live, but whole chickens, people are holding it up like, what do I do with this? I don't, chicken? Do I put it in the oven?
Been said that if Martha Stewart went paleo, you'd get something like my next guest. She is not only a real food nutritionist, she authored the Homegrown Paleo Cookbook. Here to talk about growing your own food, raising livestock, sustainable DIYs for your home, even if you live in a big city. Diana Rodgers, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
It's going to be a fun one. I was, before the call, looking through your Instagram. And first off, it's really cool you walk the talk. You know, you talk about sustainable living and you're on a farm. And I was looking through and I saw this one of all the chickens running around, and your dog was letting you know one of the chickens was out. That was pretty.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we have a couple border collies that love to invent things to do for themselves if I don't give them a job.
Policing the farm?
Yeah.
Right on, right on. Well, it's cool. How'd you get into the farm life? Was that something you grew up doing?
No, actually not at all. I met my husband in college, and I was a fine arts major and he was an English major. I had my summer job was working on farms, but I didn't see it as potential future career. But I always loved being outside. I loved just, having the sun on my skin and being covered in dirt. I loved it, working hard all day. And when we had a little apartment together, out in Western Mass, we went to UMass. I thought it would be fun to have a garden. And so that's kind of how it all started. We got a book on vermiculture. So how worms can, compost your food for you. So we started a little worm composting situation in our kitchen. And that kind of sparked everything. So it was really my husband who basically decided to do this for a career. We both had corporate jobs. We moved out to the West Coast during the .com boom in the late 90s and mid 90s. And he was miserable, totally miserable, working indoors, making money for the man. He couldn't do it. And so he read a couple of books that really inspired him. One was Wendell Berry's book, The Unsettling of America, which is awesome. And we would leave the city on the weekends and go out and look at different farms. And he was like, I think I want to be a farmer. Which is kind of radical. There was no, CSA movement really happening at the time. Certainly to his parents, it was pretty crazy talk because they thought, they'd sent this kid to school and why would he want to become a farmer?
Seems like the opposite. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So we moved back to Massachusetts after just about 2 years living in Portland. And he went back to school, back to UMass Amherst, this time to study soil science in their master's program. But again, there was no sustainability major at any school or anything like that. And so this whole time I was working in Boston in marketing and advertising. So it was really him sort of going through this midlife crisis when he was in his mid-20s.
Yeah.
And then pretty quickly he got a job running a farm and housing was included. So we moved there. This was north of Boston in a town called Hamilton. And for 10 years we were there and it was awesome. We ran a huge CSA. I ended up joining in, doing actually the marketing for the farm, running the store. We had a kitchen that I ran. So we made soups and stews and sandwiches, stuff like that from the farm. I handled all the CSA stuff. And so I pretty much organized everything and sold everything and he grew everything. So that was really, really awesome. And then about 4 years ago, we moved to our current farm, Clark Farm, which is in Carlisle, Massachusetts. So It's just west of Boston. And so currently we have a full CSA. It's about 150 members. And let's see, we raise several hundred chickens for eggs and we do pasture-based chickens. So we move them around the farm. We do goats for meat. We do sheep for meat. and we have pigs running through the woods, and those are for meat as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
And then we run like an education program. We have a store and all that kind of stuff. So that's separate. He runs the farm, and I promote and write about it and everything. And then I do nutrition stuff.
That's super cool. That's a cool story about, listening to what you're really passionate about. And even though it might be in the opposite field that you thought you would be in, just going for it.
Yeah, I have so much admiration that he figured it all out at such a young age.
Yeah.
He had the guts to do it, right? It's hard now because, so we're now in our early 40s and we have kids and our friends have kids and mortgages. And it's a lot harder to make a transition to, your passion when you have all these responsibilities and you've got these monthly payments that you have to make.
Sure.
So it's a lot easier when you're younger, because then your expectations are a little bit different and you're a little more free to make big life changes before all the responsibilities of real life set in. You look too young to have like major responsibilities.
25, so
okay.
getting there. That's kind of, yeah. I got life to figure out, man.
Yeah.
In the 20s. What's chicken shit bingo, Diana?
So, we do a lot of parties at the farm. We do a lot of potlucks. We do a lot of games. We've got all ages coming here after work. And so chicken shit bingo is something that I illustrate in the Homegrown Paleo Cookbook. And it's basically, there's a lot of different versions of this. Some people do it in a field with cows. So that's possible too. But basically you grid out squares and then everyone sort of bets on where the chicken's going to shit.
And you just let the chickens run wild?
And you just let the chicken run around, and the first person that has their number, or in the case of the one I did for the book, it was letters. Okay. So I just did letters all over the board, and then the kids love it. It's not really very cruel to the chicken.
Yeah. How long does it take? Are they unpredictable?
It's unpredictable.
Oh,
you don't know.
It could take days. Some games.
No, not day. A chicken would no.
You got to commit.
Chickens shit a lot.
That's very true.
Yeah. So, we don't have cows, but I've heard of people kind of gridding out a pasture and then, just watching the cows kind of wander around and poop.
Farm life is different.
Yeah.
Nothing like you're doing, but I lived on a farm in Hawaii for, 3 months. So in between college semesters, a very small, sustainable, had a couple cows. It was in Hawaii, so they didn't have too much livestock, but it was a lot of work. It's hot, it's hard, it's demanding, especially if you're trying to do it more natural and sustainable, and you don't have all the big, I don't know what equipment you got going, but it's definitely a commitment. Yeah,
and there's definitely a lot of tasks that are boring, right? Like washing eggs takes a really, really long time. Not terribly stimulating work. So, it's definitely humbling and it's physical, but it's awesome at the same time.
I heard you say you like a quote, "To be interested in food but not food production is absurd." Yes. And so I like that your book is about the production aspect. It's not just about the food. Right. You're not just giving us recipes and saying, here's some gluten-free brownies to make and, people come calling, but it's more about like, and I'll let you talk about it, but it's like DIYing your home for sustainability, what you can do to raise your own livestock, homesteading, is that what you call it?
Yeah, I mean, it's, gardening, homesteading, farming, I guess it all depends on the scale that you're looking to do it in. So I guess my goal with the book was to just educate people on sustainable food production. So they could totally take the book and actually go raise chickens or grow vegetables. Or, maybe for someone like you, it's just you want to learn about it and you want to like be more informed when you go to the farmer's market and you don't want to ask dumb questions like, is this chicken grass-fed? Right?
Yeah.
Because that's
dumb. They don't just eat
but
grass.
People don't know that chickens actually, don't only eat grass. And
do people ask you that?
Oh, I've had a lot of really silly questions.
Yeah. Well, what other questions have you gotten?
Well, let's see. I've had people for pick your own, when we've opened up the pick your own fields and we say strawberries are ready, they go to the green cherry tomatoes and start picking green cherry tomatoes that are growing on vines instead of red strawberries that
Same
are growing.
thing.
Yeah. Crazy stuff.
Right.
Or, you know, at our other farm, when we did sell not live, but whole chickens, people are holding it up like, what do I do with this? Chicken? Do I put it in the oven? Like, what do I do? And so that's really sad that people only know like boneless, skinless chicken breast and stuff like that. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
So the book then has kind of tiers of how serious you want to get. Like if you just want to grow a few herbs in your windowsill versus if you want to move to Boston, Massachusetts and get a sustainability degree. There's kind of levels of commitment on there.
Yeah, I mean, with the animals, I kind of go through like the basics of what you'd want, like how many acres you'd need, that kind of thing. There actually is a section in the book where I show, okay, if you live in an urban setting and only have a quarter acre, this is what you can do versus like what you can do on 1 acre.
Okay.
So it's definitely geared towards people who have just regular lives. They're not full-time farmers.
Yeah.
And then I also have tips for people who totally live an urban life and have no access at all to farming. So there's rooftop gardens, there's container gardens. They can go volunteer on a farm like ours. We have a lot of work for shares. So they are people that work in exchange for their food. And there's community gardens. So I have a whole the photo shoot that we did in a community garden right in Cambridge. And, that's awesome because there's these green spaces. They're beautiful. People do all kinds of really fun, creative things with it. You end up meeting people that you would never normally meet otherwise. And so it's a great like community building tool, and you can get your own healthy food that way too.
Let's talk about raising livestock. That sounds fun. We haven't spoken about that on this show. Someone who lives in like an urban environment, like, okay, I'm in Seattle. I have a pretty big yard. What kind of livestock, what do I need? Or I guess, what are the basics to set it up for the people at home who live in kind of an urban environment? What do you need?
Chickens are an option. I mean, I know that there's like people in Brooklyn have chickens. So chickens are definitely an option. There's some small coops that you can get. Rabbits, I know that sounds crazy, but rabbits are actually a really good option for people who don't have a lot of space.
You eat the rabbit?
Yeah.
Okay. I've never had rabbit. That's
well, it's a super paleo food. I have a recipe in my cookbook for rabbit. It's if you want to grow your own sustainable food, actually small animals can be a really good thing. We have some interns here from Peru. And whenever they come, they're always like amazed at these huge grocery stores because they don't really have grocery stores where they live. They're like up in the mountains in Cusco. And so when they want to eat, they got to go kill it. And it's for that night because they don't have tons of refrigeration. There's not a lot of, energy there. So it's not like they can have a freezer full of grass-fed beef that they ordered on Amazon and they can, just thaw out whatever they want. So like guinea pigs for them are a staple. And it's funny, whenever we ask them, like, what food are you dying for when you go back home, like at the end of their season here at the farm? And they're always like, oh, guinea pig, I can't wait. So I think it's just a matter of, like it sounds gross to me, but I'm sure if I grew up in Peru eating guinea pig, or
Sure.
If you grew up eating rabbit, it would be no big deal. So, anyway, so if people are looking to, have some livestock on a very small space, chickens is probably the more culturally appropriate one, but definitely rabbits are an option.
Okay. And might be a dumb question, but how expensive are chickens and rabbits to get? And do you keep buying more, or do they kind of produce on their own, or
yeah,
what is that process
So
like?
Rabbits are notoriously good at reproducing quickly. That's kind of like their thing.
You might end up with a rabbit farm in a couple months' time. Yeah.
So I have information in the book on how that all works. As far as chickens, we at our farm, pretty much cycle through chickens once a year. So we buy them in as, we don't hatch them here. We buy them in as pullets, which is the term for like a teenage chicken. And we have them through the growing season. And then we've actually found some markets for people that are interested in processing their own chickens here on the farm. So there's like some Guatemalans and some Africans that have found us. They like driving by, they pull over and they're like, oh my God, do you have goats and chickens? They're so psyched.
Yeah.
And so we allow them to come here and, if we have an old goat or, they want animals that have served their purpose. Right. So it's pretty cool. Like they think that's real food, not like food that was only grown, meat that's only been grown to just eat.
Right.
So they love that these chickens have already laid a bunch of eggs. Anyway, so the chicken egg production goes down the older the chicken gets. And so we try to keep them like 1, maybe 2 years, and then we buy in new ones. Now, a homesteader that has named their chickens and their kids like pet the chickens, that's a different relationship you guys have with chickens that I can't really relate to, honestly, but that's what some people do with their chickens. And so it's probably not the kind of situation where you're going to go through, a chicken a year. So chickens can live a long time. Their egg production goes down. Like
12 years, right? They can live up there.
They don't 12 years here. They're in my soup pot before
12
then.
months.
Sure.
Well, my grandmother, she lives on a farm, and she's very much names her chickens. Oh, that's Buffy, that's Tuffy, and then one got an eagle, swooped down and got it, and her life was over because her chicken was going to die. But they've been kicking for, I want to say, at least 5 to 8 years, something like that. And I looked it up, and some people said chickens can live 12 years. I might be totally wrong, but
yeah, it's totally possible. Yeah, I think that's about right.
Okay.
And then, I was when I was doing my book tour last summer, I stayed in an Airbnb in Portland, in Northeast Portland, like right near MLK, where Seasons grocery store is. And there was totally goats in that neighborhood. There was like tiny houses and goats. And it was awesome because actually when I lived in Portland in the mid-90s, that was not like the best section of Portland at all. And now it's like totally so cool.
Yeah, it's exploding.
Goats are definitely an option too. I probably wouldn't have them if I had like an urban backyard, but
they're just higher maintenance probably because they graze a lot.
Yeah, they're like crafty, so they'll totally get out. Wow. They're naughty. The goats are crazy.
So I looked it up. 8 years average life expectancy of chicken. But on goats in Seattle, they did something cool. I don't know if they've done it in Massachusetts, but where they started
hiring them out.
Yeah. And their lawnmowers in like city parks, and you just see all these goats fenced in, just chewing down, and in like a week it's gone. They pack them up and they're gone.
That's we actually just brought our goats back from another house that they totally paid us to have the goats there.
Yeah, it's cheap labor. Yeah. I saw
they're like awesome.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Shark Tank, I saw a company.
We made more money off the delivery fee than we would have off selling an entire goat.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So with chickens then, like if someone like myself, Diana, I'm ready. I want my chickens. I need a coop. I need a chicken. I need everything. Like it's a little intimidating to get into it. What do I need?
You need a chicken. Definitely. I'd recommend a couple chickens, a few, maybe 4 chickens, small coop. If you're able to have a coop like on wheels that you can move around your yard, that's a lot healthier for your yard and for the chickens. Because you don't really want them just scratching on dirt like in one sedentary place all the time. And not only is it healthier for the chickens in your yard, but you'll also attract less pests that way because lots of things like to eat chickens.
Yeah. They're not just us.
Yeah. Dogs love chickens, raccoons, fisher cats. I don't know what kind of animals you got there, but it's coyotes.
Yeah.
And so, but then also you like rats and mice like to eat the chicken feed. So you have to be really careful about how you store it. So you want like a metal container with a good lid so that, you don't attract like pests, right?
Yeah.
They need water. So you have to figure out how you're going to keep the water not frozen in the wintertime if you live in a place that freezes. That's pretty good there. I mean, we feed our chickens some grain. There's other farmers that don't do any grain at all. We do a GMO free, organic, no soy chicken feed.
Okay.
And then we feed them supplements. Like we will go to the beach and collect a bunch of seaweed, and the chickens love to eat seaweed. They love kitchen scraps. They're not too into sweets. If you try to give them something sweet, they're not as into that as they are into like broccoli, watermelon, stuff like that. So
yeah. And what is like an annual cost average for one city chicken? What do you think it would cost me to keep a chicken? Like in your best guesstimate?
It's more than what your eggs are, for sure. Yeah. You're not really going to save money at the scale that you would be doing it at. It's more for your, farm entertainment than the cost of the eggs.
Like connecting with your food too.
Yeah. Okay. And I mean, if you have kids, it's really cool that, they get to experience it. I have to say though, like, as I was mentioning earlier, chickens poop a lot. So if you're expecting the chickens to like run around your backyard, they're going to eat all your flowers and all your lettuce. So you want to keep them away from that stuff. And they're also like, I know paleo is all about like barefoot, everything or whatever, but if you want nice space in your backyard to walk around barefoot, don't expect to also have chickens in that area.
Either or.
It's it's either or.
Yeah. That's good advice because I think sometimes people, like I listen to podcasts and I hear them talking about a supplement or something, and then the next day, it's ordered in my cart on Amazon. So I don't want people to walk away from this chicken conversation like, I'm going to get 5 chickens. Diana told me to. Clark told me to. That sounds great.
Yeah. And the other thing too is, if you order them online, in the book, I walk you through like everything you're going to need and everything. But if you order baby chicks online, it's likely that you're going to get some roosters in there. So then what are you going to do? Because you probably can't have roosters if you live in a densely populated area. There's probably zoning laws against roosters.
With the noise too.
For noise reasons. Yeah. But also roosters can be really nasty. They can be mean. And not when they're younger, but as they turn older. And you might not know you have a rooster until, a few months down the road. Because that's when they start growing the comb and turning into a rooster. And so you have to figure out what you're going to do with it. And, we've had, unfortunately, lots of people just randomly drop off roosters at our farm thinking that somehow I want their rooster, which I definitely don't want their rooster. Because we don't, as a production farm, we don't want to be introducing any potential diseases or anything from someone else's birds, because chickens definitely can carry viruses and disease and stuff. So you need to figure out what your plan is, and you have to be comfortable enough to decide that you're okay with slaughtering one of your chickens if you need to. So if that idea totally freaks you out and you don't have, an awesome neighbor that can step in for you, then probably not a great idea to have chickens.
Stick to the gardens, man,
Yeah, or just volunteer on a farm.
Yeah.
Work under some other farmer and have that be just part of your life experience, and maybe have a nice clean backyard where you can walk around barefoot.
Okay, so to take it down a level then, if chickens are pretty extreme urban commitment, let's talk about gardening or what you can do if you aren't on the chicken ready level. What does Diana recommend everyone can do in their home for gardening or herbs or however you want to take that?
Yeah. So I definitely think you need an outdoor space. It's really hard to grow stuff indoors unless you have some kind of solarium, because most vegetables and herbs and stuff want full sun. So you have to figure out where you're going to have your stuff growing. And it's probably not a good idea to put it like on the north side of your house, So knowing what the south side is of your house, first of all, a lot of people don't even know which direction they're facing.
Yeah.
And then, look at how much sunlight you have. We, in the book, recommend that you prepare your garden area beforehand. So don't just like run to Home Depot, pick up a bunch of basil and tomatoes and think that you're just going to plunk them right in the ground. Like, you need to do a little prep work first to prepare the soil. You may even want to test the soil to see if there's heavy metals. Because you definitely don't want to be eating, food that's been grown with a lot of lead in the ground, things like that. It's not great.
Healthier food's the health of the soil.
Yeah. But containers are a really great option. Cherry tomatoes, do really well in containers. Herbs do well in containers.
Sorry, what's a container, Diana? Is that different than a raised bed?
Yes. So a container is like a pot. Pot that you would have like on your deck.
Oh,
right?
Okay. Yeah.
Like where you're sitting right now, I would have a container.
Yeah, I think I got one.
Yeah, like right. What is that? A cherry tomato?
That's little cherry tomato guy.
Yeah.
Okay, so containers, cherry tomatoes, basil.
Yeah, and then if you're gonna do a cherry tomato like that, they like to have some structure. So you might want to get a tomato cage, so you can get that at your garden center for your tomato behind you there. It's not
looking too hot.
What's that?
It's not looking too hot.
I just want to say that. I was just trying to give you. It doesn't look so good though.
Is that a tomato? Ugh. I don't know what that guy's doing over there.
Oh yeah. Make sure it gets some good sun and get a cage for it. Maybe get some fertilizer. You can get some organic fertilizers, like some fish fertilizer.
Maybe a new tomato plant altogether. Yeah,
maybe. And I have information on my website actually specifically about tomato care that you can check out, so people can go to my blog,
cool.
sustainabledish.com, and just check out the homesteading stuff I have on there.
Okay. What about like herb gardens? Have you seen those? I saw an infomercial once. It was like a light kit that grows and those grow up. Artificial light. What do you think about those?
I don't like artificial stuff in general at all. I think that things should be grown in dirt outside. So I'm like not a huge fan of hydroponic growing.
Right.
I'm not a huge fan of these urban tower gardens. I think that when you really look at the energy that goes into, the building that these things are growing in, the steel racks that they have to be on, the fluorescent lights, the pumped in CO2 that you need. It doesn't make a lot of sense environmentally when you can just grow stuff outdoors. I think there's some greenhouse situations where they're just extending the season a little bit. So I'm not talking about like growing tomatoes in Vermont. I'm talking about maybe growing some kale on Long Island or New York. So things that you don't have to heat so much. With artificial heat, artificial lighting, that kind of stuff. It's just not that great. And I know people are really psyched about like lab meats, lab proteins, all that kind of stuff. I think that it's a huge problem. And we're so disconnected from how food is grown that, we think that all these like new engineered fake things are better than what nature can provide. And if paleo has taught us anything, it's that like we need to look at nature and then try our best to mimic natural systems.
Joel Salatin was on and he was talking about how there's like 8 million acres of lawn in the United States, and that if everyone turned their lawn into as productive as it could be garden, we wouldn't need a single supermarket in the U.S.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not realistic, right? And we do like supermarkets and conveniences, and we like farmers to do it for us who know what they're doing, and we can support them. But it's a cool eye-opener. I think one of the biggest points I learned from him, I've just been thinking about recently, is how he said that we don't have a production problem, we have a distribution problem, and that a lot of the times we just can't get the food to people, and that half the food in the U.S. or just around the world goes uneaten. And so we can't get it into people's hands.
There also a lot of it goes to waste. So that's another,
Waste.
it's not so much the distribution as much as there's a lot of food being wasted.
Okay.
Joel Salatin is awesome. I am a huge supporter of him. He wrote the preface to the book we're talking about now. And actually I should do a little plug for an event, August 20th and 21st, where there's the Food Freedom fundraiser for the Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund. And Saturday the 20th is a big tour of Polyface. So people can like walk through. If you've never seen Joel Salatin speak in real life, it's so mind-blowing. He's awesome. And then the next day, Sunday morning, there's a bunch of us that are going to be doing some talks and then offering one-on-one sessions. As you know, people can sign up and pay for a one-on-one session. So it's going to be Dallas Hartwig, myself, Rob Wolf, Joel Salatin, and Charles Mayfield. There may be a few more too that we're trying to talk to.
Cool.
But we'll all be there at the Polyface gig too. And it's not super expensive. People can, maybe I'll send you the link to it.
Where is it?
It's down in Virginia. It's a beautiful part of Virginia. It's about 2.5 hours from Dulles Airport, kind of near Charlottesville. If you were to fly into Charlottesville, it's about a 45-minute drive from Charlottesville through like beautiful rolling. It's like how humans are supposed to live. It's absolutely gorgeous. I've been there a few times now. And I mean, his farm is how people should be farming. And it's definitely how we based our farming. He does a lot more animal production. We do a lot more vegetable production than he does. But absolutely incredible stuff. And it really can ground you and connect you with how food is supposed to be grown. And he'll also talk about how productive his acreage is. So when people say, oh, you need this many acres per cow and it's so inefficient, he's growing so many cows on very little land because of the way he's raising them. So there's a lot of arguments against, meat production in general from very just ignorant people that don't understand food production.
Or grass-fed, that it takes too much space and
right.
all that. And what's really fascinating is he was talking about how when animals move and get exercise and jump up and down from the coops or move around the farm like they're supposed to and they're not sitting in a feedlot, that you get more density because the myoglobin in their muscles and it gets more nutrition. And so that you can actually measure the density of like grass-finished beef or grass-fed beef against conventional feedlot beef, and you get more nutrition out of it.
And then there's the omega-3 thing too. So, where do you get omega-6s? It's from grains, but it's also from animals that have eaten grains. And so grass-fed, pasture-based, for example, eggs from pasture-based chickens have, depending on the study, 13 to 20 times more omega-3s. So just so much healthier. It's like when people say, well, I can't afford those eggs, it's like you're not even comparing an egg to an egg. It's like not, you might as well be looking at tofu versus an egg or something like that.
Yeah.
And same thing with grass-fed meat. So it's just much higher in omega-3s.
That's a cool point. So the animals that eat grains,
they're highly inflamed and pass it on to you.
Yeah. You get all the bad stuff. And counter to that, you get the good stuff if you eat the right kind.
Yep.
Talking about, raising livestock, what we hit on, and then talking about like growing your own vegetables. Now let's talk about like finding vegetables. I know you have a chapter on foraging in there. What's your take on foraging?
Well, I think that wild plants are incredibly nutrient dense. And actually, there's a woman, I believe she's up in the Seattle area, Jo Robinson, and she wrote a book called what's it called? She runs the blog eatwild.com.
Uh-huh.
And
Eatwild.
Eatwild.com.
Yeah.
It connects you with food producers. So it's actually really, really great.
Okay.
I'm looking, Eating on the Wild Side is the name of her book. And so she talks about how like cherry tomatoes, tiny little cherry tomatoes are much closer to, what a tomato in the wild would have been like. And so like the bigger the tomato, the less nutrient dense it is. So she sort of talks about the importance of eating things that are close to wild, which is, we know that from, everyone's interest in grass-fed meats. So there are weeds that are really, really healthy for you. Like purslane is probably the number one. It has more omega-3s than any other plant there is. That's edible.
Purslane?
Purslane.
I've never heard of that.
It's the most common weed there is. It
Really?
grows everywhere in the world. I'm sure if you look at a picture of it, I don't know what page it would be on, probably towards the end of the homesteading section.
Okay.
You have seen it before in the cracks of the sidewalk, growing everywhere. I probably wouldn't recommend eating the ones that you find between the cracks in the sidewalk because that's not like the most nutrient dense like situation for that purslane. But if you are able to go to an organic farm, that's an awesome place to find it because you can just talk to the farmer about, hey, can I weed for you and take the purslane? And they're like, yeah. They would never say no to that.
So you can eat it.
Yeah. And like spanakopita in Greece, that's usually made with purslane. Sag in India is often made with purslane. So it's kind of it's like a succulent type leaf.
Yeah, it's like that spongy thing. I'm looking at it now, and it's got kind of like a red outline and red vines.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It grows absolutely everywhere.
And it's really nutritious.
It's so healthy for you.
Oh, and how do you eat it? Do you cook it or raw?
You can eat it raw. You can put it in a salad. I have recipes in the book, so people are going to just have to buy the book. But then you can find recipes online. You can basically just use it how you would use any green. So in place of spinach or kale or anything like that in a soup or stew.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Purslane. I'm going to look into that.
But so there's really great foraging opportunities, to go in your local area. Like when we lived in Portland, we actually went to the coast and did like a morning seaweed collection with some expert out there. Like I know there's options in a lot of places with local experts. So in the book, I talk about things that we have in New England, like birch tea, from the birch trees. But, if you don't have birch trees there, you can definitely find maybe a mushroom forager or.
Sorry. No, I'm not laughing at the mushroom. It's just like, so quick story. One time in college, I was dating a woman and I had this surprise date for her, and I was really excited. It was going to be super cool because we were going to forage mushrooms.
Yeah.
And I didn't tell her about it, and it was during finals week, so I'm like, hey, I got this surprise for us. It's really cool. I want to take you to do something special.
Yeah.
So in her mind, she's thinking, we're going to go to the beach or we're going to go do something romantic. And then I take her to this Central Park, and I'm like, okay. And she's, what are we doing, Clark? Like, we're foraging for mushrooms. Get this. And I show her a picture of the mushrooms we're foraging for, and she walked away. She was not happy. And that was... that
was the end.
That was the beginning of the end.
That was the beginning of the end.
So mushrooms foraging...
Well, you know what? If she's not cool with that, then she's not worth having around.
That's right, Diana. She wasn't into the mushroom foraging.
Well, I would definitely go with an expert if you're going to do mushrooms, only because there's a lot of false mushrooms that look a lot like the edible kind that can kill you. Yeah. So maybe she was smart to walk away. I don't know.
Maybe.
You showed her a picture. You didn't have like an expert with you. You just we're going to go look for this mushroom.
Yeah. I was DIY Clark. Saw some chaga mushroom photos online, and I don't even think that grows in Seattle. So that was about 4 years ago.
I don't know. I might have walked away too, actually.
We had Taro Isokopila. He does 4-sigmatic mushroom teas and all that.
Uh-huh.
I can't remember if it's the one that grows on the logs or the ones that grow in the ground. One of those is edible always, and the other you have to be really careful for.
Yeah.
So this helps a lot because one of them might kill you, but the other one you can eat as much as you want.
Right. So I wouldn't start with mushrooms. You start with purslane.
Okay. Start with purslane.
Or lamb's quarters is another one that's really common on organic farms. It grows in between the plants. We've got tons of it. My husband's going to be really mad at me for mentioning that, but we have lots of it on the farm. He hates seeing weeds, so it really kills him when they make it into my Instagram shot. I'll be like, oh, look at this beautiful, I took this really cool picture of some asparagus about a month ago. And I was like, isn't this beautiful? Look how the light comes in. And he's like, it's just pointing at the weed, and it's like something I don't even notice, but it just makes him so mad.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard that weeds help plants grow. They have a symbiotic relationship or something like that. Is there conflicting research on that?
There's all kinds of stuff out there. We definitely don't enjoy having weeds on our farm. We see a lot of really weedy organic farms. They also compete for nutrients with the plants. So I guess that's our opinion on weeds. We definitely try to keep them at bay with mulching in between. So we'll put down like straw in between, like the strawberries, to try to, inhibit weed growth. When they're when the weeds are really, really tiny, we try to get rid of them soon before they get really big. Once they've gone to seed, you're in trouble because then the seeds are getting into the soil, and then you're just going to have a big, big problem with weeds. So I guess we're kind of anti-weed.
Okay. A couple more closing questions, Diana. This flew by. This is a really fun podcast. I loved it. So, biggest lesson you've learned in 2016 so far?
In 2016?
Yeah, or this year. Doesn't have to be exactly 2016.
Wow.
Stump ya?
Yeah, totally. You should have sent that one to me ahead of time. I don't know. I mean, I just finished this RD program. So it was really rough towards the end. I blogged about it a lot. I was surrounded by a lot of death, which was really intense for me. Because I was working in some pretty bad hospitals where I didn't have many tools to give them, like a can of Ensure. And so I felt really stifled and helpless. I'm really happy to be out on the other side, to be done with the RD program, and to be able to prevent that kind of thing from happening in the future. So, but one thing I did learn was that the patients in the hospitals who got the best care are the ones that had family members grilling the doctors like on a daily basis. Huh. So I know that's probably like a weird thing to say, but if you know someone who's in a hospital situation, nursing home, or, in rehab or whatever, you need to be there all the time, and you need to be like asking for the tests and asking what the blood values are, and go get a book and look it up, or have someone with you that knows about medical care, because those are the people who get the best care. And it's really unfortunate, but that's true.
That's a good tip. That's a really good lesson. Yeah. What are maybe one or two things people at home right now can walk away and do to be healthier or happier or take control of their health?
Okay. So I was just mentioning to you before the show, but there's two blog posts that I've just recently put out, and I think they would be really good examples of what to do. So the first one, I put out last Sunday, and it's all about the myth of the paleo panacea. So the idea that paleo cures everything and makes you immortal, and all you have to do is just, maybe it's a little more than just the food. You have to get some good sleep and some exercise, and maybe, a little downtime from screens, and you're good. And, that's a myth. It's just, people have actual legit diseases. It all started from a patient that came into my room who was diagnosed with a bipolar disorder. And she was super nervous to tell me that, she was meeting with a psychiatrist and maybe about to go on some meds. And, my response to her was like, hey, life is short. There are situations when meds can really help. And so it's okay. Like, you're not failing if you need to pull in some modern medicine. So, the reason why I don't know anyone who is, and you probably don't know anyone who's died of smallpox or polio, is because of vaccines. So I think that there definitely is a cause for healthy debate about these topics, and maybe, certain vaccines should be held off or maybe not done. But there's also a lot of benefit that modern medicine has brought us, and we can't just completely discount all of it. So that's the first thing. If you're sick or depressed or whatever, and there's medicine that can help you, definitely lifestyle changes too, but look into that.
Antibiotics, your foot's going to fall off. Don't just take garlic.
You can't eat extra kale to fix that.
Yeah.
Right. And then the second thing is this myth of moderation. So I just wrote a post for robwolf.com about a study that just came out. And it's basically that people in general cannot moderate. They don't know how to do it. And actually, the more they like a food, the higher their perception is of what is a moderate intake of it. So the more they like pizza, the more pizza they think is a moderate amount to eat. And so,
the more you like alcohol, the harder it is to moderate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and actually, on his personal Facebook page, on robwolf.com Facebook page, and then on robwolf.com, I have been reading these crazy comments from people saying like, that's crazy. What about all this other stuff? So, people are food addicted. They have very poor ability to manage their own intake. And that's partly because psychologically we just tend to favor ourselves. And also because the food out there is hyper palatable. And so it's really not their fault that they can't eat just one Pringles, that as the Pringles have been designed to, by food engineers who are paid a lot of money to make sure that you can't stop and that you're eating all of the entire can. So that's where also I have a little bit of an issue with the paleo treats, only because, it's fine. Like I'll totally eat some ice cream once in a while or, paleo treat if someone brings it to me, but I don't consider those really part of like, if someone's doing 80-20, that's not an 80. It's not paleo to eat. Even if it's paleo brownie, it's still a brownie. And, that's not really, if the goal of paleo is to like optimize your health, then, foods within that category need to be health giving. And there's just way too many hyperpalatable foods out there. And you can easily make paleo foods hyperpalatable as well. It's by, manipulating the ingredients, grinding up, making nut flour cakes and things like that. So again, it's not that I'm against sugary foods in general, but I think that people have a really hard time moderating. And as a dietitian, I have to say that I can't ethically tell somebody that a little bit of candy or a little bit of soda or whatever is okay when I know that they're having a hard time moderating. So most people need to be abstainers. And I think especially for their first 30 days on paleo, no paleo treats. Like you need to eat super boring food and you need to just reset yourself. And then if you go, if you sort of readdress your relationship with food and you find that you can have some treats once in a while, but there's certain things you don't have an off switch for, then maybe those foods that you don't have an off switch for need to not make it into your house or, whatever. So anyway, the study just came out, and again, people are really, it's really hard for them to hear that information. And they're not looking like what you said about alcohol. They're not really realizing that food is addictive, just like alcohol or gambling. And so, we can tell, even though an alcoholic will say, I'm trying to cut down before they actually quit drinking, it's the same with food addicts. So, when I went to an Overeaters Anonymous meeting a couple months ago, just to see what it was like, see what they talk about, the only successful people that got up and talked about what made them successful was abstinence from wheat and sugar. So, because those were their trigger foods. And so, anyway, the whole everything in moderation, which is taught to registered dietitians as the advice to give people, and that orthorexia is evil, it just fails. So.
Sustainable Dish, Diana Rodgers. Thanks for coming on the show. This was really fun. SustainableDish.com is where people can find you and learn more.
Yep.
And you have a podcast as well, correct?
I have a podcast called Sustainable Dish.
Okay. And then what's the best episode for people to start on?
Oh, that's a good question too. God, you're really...
Yeah. Like your hit single. Do you have a hit single?
I think that if people are interested in the sustainability thing and wondering about like cows and beef production, they should listen to the episode I did when the show was called Modern Farm Girls. So it used to be called Modern Farm Girls. I used to run it with Liz Wolfe. Liz got busy with her baby. I wanted to interview more than farm girls. And so I changed the title to Sustainable Dish. But still on my blog, on my archives, I have the episode I did with Nicolette Nyman, who is a rancher, and she's actually happens to be a vegetarian. But she used to be a lawyer, and she takes you through all the reasons why beef is good for the environment and good for health.
Okay.
So I think that that's really useful ammunition that paleo folks can have.
Really fun. Diana, thanks so much for coming on. This is a fun call. Learned a lot.
Take care of that tomato plant. Don't go foraging for mushrooms.
That's right. Eat weeds in the sidewalk.
And eat weeds.
There we go. We got it. Problem solved. All right. Till next time, Diana.
Okay. Thanks.
Diana Rodgers, everyone. Whew, that was a energetic show. Blast talking to Diana. Loved the part about the weeds. That blew me away. I already forget the name of that plant, but I'm going to look it up. And how it has a lot of... I'm really trying to get into foraging. So got to look into getting someone on the call to talk more about that. That's a fascinating topic for sure. If you want more on sustainability and farming, we spoke about briefly, Diana and I, Joel Salatin. He was on the show not too long ago, probably about 6 months ago, 4 months ago even. Definitely before January. That was a phenomenal episode. Might be one of my favorites, if not my favorite episode we've ever done in over 100 shows on Paleohacks. Joel is just the real deal. Even if you have zero interest in farming, that is like a must listen to episode. Head over there to paleohacks.com and just type Joel Salatin. That's Salatin. Ooh, I might get that one wrong. Or just type Joel in the search bar and it should pop up. It's the one with the farmer in the hat. He's also on the Best of Paleohacks episode if you want to listen to that. 11 Questions Change Your Life is a free ebook I put out for you guys and everyone about the 11 best questions we can ask ourselves if we want to improve our life, take things to the next level, or just get more clarity with where we're at. Maybe we're totally content with where we're at. We can still benefit from asking ourselves the right questions. 100% free. It's over on my site, clarkdanger.com. And just put in your email. It'll get sent right to you because that's the power of this digital world. That's it. Next week, we got Lierre Keith coming on, talking about the vegetarian myth. Get into maybe some of the downsides of vegetarianism, veganism, why eating meat doesn't mean hating animals. How can you be a meat eater with the ethical and moral values of a vegan or a vegetarian? Really fascinating going into Lierre's story about how 20 years as a vegan left her with a lot of health conditions and a lot of things built up. So that was a fascinating show. Really enjoyed talking to her. She's a sweetheart. Can't say enough great things about Lierre. Been flipping through her book. It's phenomenal. So if you want to pre-read, that's The Vegetarian Myth, bonus points. And then the following week, we got Kayla T. Daniel coming on with the whole soy story. Why eating soy is not the best idea. We get into the history of soy, how it got so mainstream. Does Asia really consume as much soy as the West thinks it does? Is soy a superfood or a supervillain? Get into all that in 2 weeks. All right, that is it. Thank you so much for listening. I love you guys, and I will see you back here next Thursday.